Imagine standing in an ancient Greek city when the ground suddenly begins to move. Roof tiles crash into the street. Stone walls split. The sea withdraws from the shore. There are no seismographs, no tectonic maps, and no plate theory. So what made the earth shake? The obvious answer seems to be Poseidon, the earth shaker. But the real Greek answer became far more complicated than that. The earth shaker. For many Greeks, earthquakes belonged naturally to Poseidon. Homer repeatedly gives the god names that connect him with the shaking and holding of the earth. In the Iliad, when the gods enter battle, Poseidon causes the vast earth and the mountain peaks to quake so violently that even Hades fears his underground kingdom may be exposed. That image matters. Poseidon was not only a god of the sea, he was also a power beneath stable ground, a god whose presence could turn something solid into something frighteningly uncertain. The sea could rise, the coast could fail, the earth itself could move. But ancient Greek religion was not a single rulebook. Saying that Poseidon was the earth shaker did not mean every Greek, in every century, explained every earthquake in exactly the same way. If you enjoy seeing where mythology meets the real ancient world, like the video, share it with another mythology fan, and tell us in the comments. If the ground moved beneath you with no scientific explanation, would you think first of a god, a natural force, or both? When disaster became divine meaning, the connection between Poseidon and earthquakes was more than poetic decoration. Historical communities could interpret real disasters through his power. Thucydides records the enormous earthquake that struck Sparta in the 5th century BCE. He also tells us that the Spartans themselves connected that disaster with an earlier act of sacrilege. Helots' suppliants had taken refuge at the sanctuary of Poseidon at Taenarum, and the Spartans had killed them after drawing them away from sacred protection. Later, the Spartans believed the great earthquake was connected with that offense. Notice what this explanation does. The earthquake is not random. It enters a moral world. A sacred boundary was violated, and the earth shaker becomes part of the meaning of the disaster. Herodotus gives us another striking example near Potidaea. During the Persian Wars, the sea withdrew unusually far, tempting Persian troops to cross the exposed ground. Then the water returned in a devastating flood. The people of Potidaea said the disaster came because the Persians had profaned a sanctuary and image of Poseidon. Herodotus says he believed their explanation was correct. To ancient observers, sea and earthquake could belong to the same divine personality because Poseidon ruled a world where coastlines, waves, and the ground beneath human feet were all unstable. Why Poseidon fit a shaking landscape? This helps explain why the title Earth Shaker is so important. The Greeks did not need to imagine Poseidon as a giant smashing the ground with his trident every time a tremor occurred. Ancient poetry could simply present the earth moving because Poseidon moved it. The god embodied the terrifying fact that the ground was not always dependable. That was especially meaningful in the Greek world. Greece and the Aegean sit in one of the most seismically active parts of the Mediterranean. Modern geology explains this region through complex movements involving the African, Eurasian, Aegean, and Anatolian systems. Ancient Greeks did not know tectonic plates, but they lived with the consequences. They saw cities damaged. They saw springs change. They saw shorelines behave strangely. They saw earthquakes interrupt wars and political plans. A god called the Earth Shaker was not an abstract symbol invented far from the danger. He belonged to a landscape that really shook. The Greeks began searching for physical causes. Yet Greek thought did something fascinating with that experience. It did not stop with divine agency. By the classical period, Greek thinkers were also asking a different question. What physical process inside the earth could produce the shaking? Aristotle preserves several competing answers in his Meteorology. He names Anaxagoras, Anaximenes, and Democritus before giving his own theory. Their explanations are wrong by modern standards, but the important change is enormous. The problem is being treated as something that might have a natural mechanism. Anaxagoras argued that ether trapped beneath the earth could force its way into cavities and shake the ground. Anaximenes gave a different explanation. He thought the earth could crack and collapse after becoming extremely dry or extremely wet. Pieces of earth breaking away beneath the surface would then produce the shaking. Democritus focused on water. In Aristotle's summary, excess water entering hollows within the earth, or water moving from fuller regions toward emptier ones, could disturb the ground. These thinkers disagreed with one another. That disagreement is exactly the point. They were not simply repeating one sacred explanation. They were proposing mechanisms, comparing them, and trying to explain why earthquakes occurred in some places and conditions rather than others. Aristotle's underground wind. Aristotle rejected those earlier theories and offered his own. For him, the crucial force was wind. He imagined the earth as containing cavities and passages. Heat and moisture produced what he called an exhalation. When this moving air or wind became trapped underground, compressed, redirected, or forced through confined spaces, it could strike and shake the earth. Aristotle tried to connect this idea with observations. He discussed earthquakes near porous or cavernous ground. He linked some shocks with unusual calm, underground noises, changes in water, and coastal flooding. He even distinguished different kinds of motion, comparing some earthquakes to trembling and others to a throbbing from below. None of this is plate tectonics. The mechanism is incorrect, but it is recognizably an attempt at physical explanation. Aristotle is asking what material moves, where it moves, what conditions make the motion stronger, and why different earthquakes behave differently. Religion, observation, and history at the same time. That means a Greek person could inhabit a culture in which Poseidon was genuinely worshipped as Earth Shaker, while Greek natural philosophers also argued over air, water, collapsing earth, and underground forces. Those two ways of understanding the world did not have to appear as a simple modern battle between religion and science. The historical record makes that overlap easier to see. Thucydides can report earthquakes as concrete events that redirect military history. The Spartan earthquake helps trigger a Helot revolt and changes the political situation of Greece. Elsewhere, armies halt or change plans when earthquakes occur. At the same time, sacred interpretation remains present. Communities could ask whether a god had been offended, whether a sanctuary had been violated, or whether an extraordinary event carried divine meaning. This was not unique to earthquakes. Ancient Greek religion often read unusual natural events inside a network of gods, ritual obligations, omens, and local cults. Natural philosophers, meanwhile, increasingly searched for repeatable causes in matter and motion. Later Greek writing also shows people trying to describe the behavior of earthquakes themselves, not merely their meaning. Pausanias, writing centuries after the classical period, discusses different kinds of shaking and compares their motions with recognizable physical effects. When he describes the destruction of Hellas in Achaea, he connects the earthquake with a catastrophic inundation from the sea. The city disappears beneath a combined disaster of ground and water in a region strongly associated with Poseidon. That does not make Pausanias a modern seismologist, but it shows how observation, memory, religion, and explanation could sit beside one another. A place could be sacred to Poseidon, a catastrophe could be remembered in religious terms, and writers could still pay close attention to the direction, violence, and physical consequences of the shaking. The same disaster could therefore be several things at once: a historical event, a divine warning, a political turning point, and a natural phenomenon worth describing. We should resist the temptation to make one side erase the other. There was no moment when every Greek suddenly stopped thinking about Poseidon because a philosopher proposed underground wind. There was also no single ancient scientific theory that replaced mythology with the correct modern explanation. Instead, the Greek world preserved multiple answers at once, from fear to natural explanation. And those answers were shaped by fear. An earthquake is unlike a storm because the danger comes from the thing that normally supports you. There is no obvious enemy to see. The street moves. The walls become weapons. The coastline can change. The familiar world behaves as if it has broken its own rules. Calling Poseidon the Earth Shaker gave that terror a face, a name, and a place inside a religious universe. Trying to explain earthquakes through underground air, water, or collapsing Earth did something different. It turned terror into a problem that could be examined. Both responses begin with the same human impulse: the need to make an unpredictable world intelligible. Today we know that most earthquakes are produced when stress in the Earth's crust is released along faults, often in regions shaped by tectonic plate motion. In the Mediterranean, the interaction of major plates and smaller tectonic systems makes Greece and the Aegean especially active. We no longer need Poseidon or trapped underground wind to explain the physical cause. But the old Greek question has not disappeared. When the ground moves, we still ask why it happened, why there, why now, and what the event means for the people who survive it. Why the Greek answer was never just one thing. So how did ancient Greeks explain earthquakes? There was never just one answer. In myth and cult, Poseidon was the earth shaker, powerful enough in Homer to make mountains and the whole land tremble. Historical communities could interpret destructive events as signs of his anger or as consequences of sacrilege. At the same time, Greek thinkers built natural theories. Anaximenes imagined collapsing Earth. Democritus emphasized moving water. Anaxagoras proposed forces trapped beneath the surface. Aristotle argued for underground wind. Every one of those physical mechanisms was wrong. But the habit behind them was transformative: observe, compare, disagree, and search for causes inside nature itself. That is what makes the ancient Greek earthquake so revealing. The shaking ground sits exactly where GHU's world becomes most interesting, between myth, environment, history, and the human need to understand forces larger than ourselves. If you enjoyed this journey, like the video, share it with someone who loves ancient Greece, and tell us what surprised you more: Poseidon's role in real historical interpretations, or the fact that Greek philosophers were already debating natural earthquake theories more than 2,000 years ago. And if there is another god, myth, strange ancient belief, or natural phenomenon you want us to investigate, leave it below. Your requests help us decide where Gods and Heroes Unveiled goes next.